Hey, what's going on everyone? Today I'm going to just show you a simple tutorial on the Arduino. It's basic microcontroller programming. These are the very basics on how to get started with this kind of stuff. It's real simple, and there's two parts to this. In the first part, I've already got it wired up like it's going to be in the end, just because it's easier to make the video a little shorter. But the first thing we'll go over is just how to wire up a button to turn an LED on like this. And that's all it'll do. It won't do anything else. You can push the button, it won't do anything else. And then we're going to go into the second part, which is a little bit more elaborate, if you will. And this is what it does. It's like a button state. You can, with each press the button, you turn on a different LED. And then after the third LED gets turned on, it gets all turned off. It's still a little bit glitchy. You just kind of have to play with the delay in between. But we'll go ahead and start on the wiring of this. So I'm going to tear this down, show you how to wire it, show you what kind of components you need and where you can get them. Okay, I've got the board torn down now, so you can see, all the different components laid out. We have the Arduino Uno, which you can buy on Amazon, or you get it from SparkFun or wherever. Usually Amazon's the easiest, and it comes with the little USB cable to program it. And this is probably the most popular microcontroller breakout board. Then 3 basic LEDs and 3 10K resistors. They're a 1/4 watt. It doesn't really matter on this project. And then some short jumper wires and some long jumper wires and a breadboard. You can buy all this stuff on Amazon. Just, search for it and you'll find it. And it's all pretty cheap too. It's nothing expensive. So we'll go ahead and start putting it together. And the first thing I'm going to do is hook the Arduino to the breadboard to supply the power to it. So we'll hook into the 5-volt pin right here. It's labeled. And go to the positive rail on the breadboard. And then we'll hook into the ground. By the way, you can hook into any ground. On here, there's like a ground here, a ground below there, and another one over here. It doesn't really matter. I just prefer to have both of them at the same side. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to jumper from this positive rail to this positive rail, because I'm going to just be using both sides. It's a lot easier to do it that way. And so negative to negative. So you can see positive to positive, negative to negative. That way both sides have power to them. And then I'm going to take my little button, and you can see it's longer one way. I'm going to just kind of stick it in there like that. And then I'm going to go to the ground on this side. I'm going to come off the bottom side of this button. And I'm going to ground it. And then what we'll do is put the LEDs in. And the short end of the LED is your negative. So we'll go ahead and put this in here. And then same here. We'll space them out a little bit. Just like that. So this side's the positive, because it's the long leg. And so we'll start out with the first one, which is the green one. And we'll go to pin 2. And you can go to pretty much any pin. Just kind of stay away from 0, 1, and 13 for now, because they can act a little bit weird, like when you reset them and stuff. So this one goes to pin 3. And then we're going to hook the blue one to pin 4. And then we're going to hook the button to pin 5. You can go, if you try to go right here, it's connected, so the button won't work. So you have to go like on the opposite side like that. You could also go over here or both of them over here, but I'm going to just hook it up like this and hook it to pin 5. And then all we got to do is ground our LEDs. So just take your 10K resistors and hook them to ground. Okay, now everything is hooked up. I had to replace a couple resistors because they were just bending way too much, so I cut that out of the video. And so now it's hooked up all the way, so we can go ahead and give it power. Okay, one thing I usually do just to test that the LEDs are hooked up right is I'll hook into a positive rail, and then I'll just hit these and see that turns on. That one turns on. That one turns on. So the polarity is correct. I usually just check that, that way I'm not confused with my code and thinking it's my code when it's really not. And so that's the basic hookup. So we'll go ahead and start coding the program right now. Okay, so here we are in the IDE, the Arduino IDE, and you can see we have an integer, that's the data type. Variable LED1 is set to pin 2. Then we have another integer data type. Variable button is set to pin 5. This is where we're setting our variables up above the setup and the loop. And then we have the setup, which will just run once when the program is executed. And pin mode defines whether it's like an input or an output or an input pull-up, which we have right here. So LED1's an output because we're switching it on and off. We're giving it voltage on an output. Instead of getting an input, the button is an input, unlike the LEDs. But the reason I put input pull-up is because when the button's not pressed, the internal pull-up resistor of the Arduino pulls it high. And so when you push the button, it'll pull it low. And then we have digital write LED1 low, which just makes sure that the LED's off when the microcontroller boots up. And then we have the void loop, which this continually runs as long as the Arduino is on. And we just have a simple if statement. So if this happens, then we do this. So if digital read button is low at any time, then we're going to write the LED1 high. So we're just basically going to turn the LED on. And so what I'll do is I'll go ahead and upload this to the board. And as you can see, we push that button and the green LED turns on just like we said it would. Okay. So I'm going to reset the Arduino. And then what we will do is we can modify this. So I could add my other LEDs. So we can say int LED2, and you can name this whatever you want. You could put red LED, blue LED, whatever. But I'm just putting LED2 because it's the second LED. And we're going to set it to pin 3 because we already have it routed to pin 3. And then we can do int LED3 set to pin 4. And make sure you end your lines right here. And so now we have everything set up. We have LED 1, 2, and 3. And also the buttons set up. So those are all the pins that we're hooked to right now. And then what we need to do, since we define these two new ones right here, LED 2 and 3, we need to set up the pin mode for it. So pin mode, LED 2, same, LED 2, same thing. And then pin mode, LED 3 is the same thing, output. And I'm just copying, I should have just copied and pasted those up there. But we'll just do this, and then we'll change that to LED 2 and LED 3. And then we can just copy and paste this 2 more times. Change that to LED 2, LED 3. Then we can upload that to the board. And we'll see what happens. Okay, here we go. There, all 3 have them turned on. Now I'm going to add like a slight variation to that. So I'm going to put a delay after each LED. Okay, so we'll put a delay, I'm still on caps, of 100, and that's in milliseconds by default. And so we can go down here also and do it. We won't need to do it after the 3rd one because it's going to go, it's going to write this one high. It's going to wait 100 milliseconds, which is 1/10 of a second. And then it's going to write this one high, and then it's going to wait 1/10 of a second and write this one high. So we'll see what happens. Okay, here we go. As you can see, that was pretty quick. Now, one thing you could do, instead of, like, say you have 10 of these, and they're all the same value, so I can come up here and define a new int data type called delay, and we can't use delay because it's already a function in Arduino, so I'm gonna just put delay 1. You can put LED delay, let's just put that. LED delay equals 500. And then you can take this, copy it, and replace it in the delay function. So now you'll see when it gets uploaded, it'll take significantly longer for each LED to light up. Okay, I think it's time to move on to the next section. Okay, now we're into the second part of this. As you can see, all the variables up here are the same. We still have LED 1, 2, and 3 and the button. And now we have a new variable called int button count. It's set to 0. This is to keep track of how many times the button's pressed. And then we have the delay 1, which is what we named it in this one. I didn't change it, but we'll just call it delay 1. This is the delay between each one of these because you need a little bit of a delay for the debounce, otherwise you'll get a lot of glitches. And this is the delay that you kind of play with to get the smoothness. And I kind of just put 100 in here. It's kind of a rough, it's a good, decent number to start with, but you tweak it a little bit more. And as you can see in the setup, we still have all these same these same pin modes, same digital writes. We just set all the LEDs to low, and then we have the loop. I'm going to show you a cool little feature in here. So if you see this very last curly bracket and you click right before it, you can see up here it says void loop. That means that this belongs to void loop. Now if you click this one, it belongs to this if statement. This one goes to this if statement, so on and so forth. There's 5 main if statements. This is the only nested one right here. And so you can click this right here, and you can see it's to this if statement. If you click this, it's to this else statement. If you click that, it's to that if statement. Anyway, so if the button's pressed, and if the button count is equal to 4, so if it's over 3, then it resets the button count to 0, and it delays 100 milliseconds. Else, if it's not 4, if it's 0, 1, 2, or 3, it's going to say button count is equal to button count plus 1. So it just iterates up 1 every time you push the button. And then there's the delay again. It's the same delay. That's why I use the variable up there, because it's all the same delay. And then here's the next if statement. And if the button counts 0, digital write all of these LEDs to low so that they're all off and delay. And then if you press the button, this is going to iterate. It's going to go through here and it's going to say, okay, the button counts 0, so it's not 4. So it's going to execute this else statement, and it's going to bring it to 1 when you press it once, and then it's going to match this if statement, and then it's going to do what it's told in here, so it's only going to write the first one high and the rest of them low, and you have to put these other ones in here, because if you don't, you'll run into a lot of problems. Okay, and this is the next if statement. So if you press the button again, the button count will be 2, and then it'll turn the second LED on, all the other ones off, and then delay. And then if you press the button again, it'll be equal to 3. It'll turn just the third one on, it'll turn the rest off, and once again it'll delay. And if you press the button again, it'll set it back to 0, so it just goes over and over and over again. Okay, so I just powered the Arduino on. I'm going to write this to it, and we'll see how it works. So we press it once, the green comes on. Press it again, the red comes on. Press it again, the blue comes on. Press it again, it turns off. Just a quick demo. It's still a little bit glitchy, but it does work. I think it's my button. I think it's these cheap buttons. You have to press them kind of hard. And it's not really staying in there too well. It's kind of loose. But anyways, that concludes this tutorial. Please like and subscribe. And I will try to make at least one of these videos a week. And as always, have a good day.